Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to CIO Leadership Live. I'm your host, Maryfran Johnson, CEO of Maryfran Johnson Media. Twice a month, we produce CIO Leadership Live with the generous and kind support of my friends at CIO.com and our CIO Executive Council. We're streaming live to you right now on LinkedIn and on CIO's YouTube channel. And we welcome all of our viewers and people that have tuned in today to take part in this live conversation and pop in with questions of your own for my guest. We'll be watching for those questions and doing our very best to pass them along to today's guest, who is Kevin Gray. He is the Chief Information Officer of the City of Burbank, California. Since 2018, Kevin has been driving the city's extensive digital transformation and technology strategies, as well as managing the overall operations of IT and the department that is serving more than 108,000 citizens in Burbank. Burbank is often called the media capital of the world, being situated just a few miles to the northeast of Hollywood and home to numerous media and entertainment giants who have their headquarters there, including Warner Brothers, Walt Disney Company, Nickelodeon, and Netflix. In his 5 years as Burbank CIO, Kevin has developed a reputation as an IT leader who's committed to growing the technical talent and the business agility of his technology team, and also creating better business processes and digital solutions for the city's evolving needs through these disruptive pandemic years. Among the many topics we'll be diving into today are how he and his team have been rising to the occasion and meeting the challenges of deploying smarter cities technologies, of bringing AI technology like ChatGPT to the Burbank City website, and advancing the city's digital business capabilities overall with design thinking and agile methodologies. Before he took on his current role, Kevin served as the Vice President of Global Media and Infrastructure Technology at Viacom, where he managed worldwide teams in IT architecture, engineering, operations, and tech support. And before that, he served as the VP of IT Infrastructure and Operations at Paramount Pictures, where he was leading the movie studio's tech architecture planning function and working in design, implementation, and operations. On top of all of that, Kevin has also continues to serve on several nonprofit boards, such as Southern California's Society of Information Management, SIM chapter, and Innovate at UCLA, an IT executive networking group that's affiliated with the university's Office of Advanced Research Computing and the Burbank YMCA. So he's a very busy city CIO, and we're really pleased to have him here. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you, Maryfran.
Okay, let's dive in and let's talk about what your marching orders were coming into the city government CIO role in 2018. You have more than 25 years in media type company experience, but this was something new, municipal IT leadership.
Yes.
How did your years of corporate IT experience guide your approach? Let's start there.
Well, I'll say that government IT is very, very different than the media technology. Mm-hmm. But the principles that you would apply towards improving services and products mm-hmm. Are really universal. Design thinking principles, lean principles are applicable everywhere and can be used in all industries to improve processes everywhere. So sure. I arrived with a wealth of knowledge that I could apply to really improving things here at the city mm-hmm. from a technology and process perspective. My marching orders in the very beginning really were to stabilize IT, to set a new direction for technology at the city, a new strategy, and to really modernize how we do things.
Yes.
So I really started off focusing on what I like to call the blocking and tackling mm-hmm. of technology. Really the support, the processes around support, and our approaches around building new technology solutions for the city and really supporting what we had. Yeah. But I really needed to change the focus of the group. And I want to give giant kudos to my team and the great work that they've done over the past 5 years to really transform how we serve the city and transform really our focus for providing new value, new solutions, new process to the city.
Yeah.
So we've come along. We've really come a long way. And so I really needed to change. I really needed to bring modern approaches and a modern focus to how we do technology at the city.
Right.
And so it's been I'll say it's been a long journey for us. But I'm really happy with where we've come.
Yes. Well, and I know we're going to talk a lot about the different technologies and that kind of thing, but also what you bring up is really about a cultural mindset shift that you have to lead as a CIO who is bringing about these sort of changes. And I always think of that old Dilbert cartoon about, oh, change is great. You go first.
Right.
So let's give me an example of one of the before and after some of this work that your teams are particularly proud of. What the citizens of Burbank have, I mentioned that I think you've got ChatGPT at work right now on the Burbank website, or maybe that's just coming.
That's coming. That's for the future. Okay. That's one of the things that we're looking at. I'll say probably the biggest, most visible success that we've had recently was the redesign and the rebuild of our website. We haven't applied ChatGPT to it, but we've applied design thinking principles and modern UX design to really change our website so that it brings more value. It's more usable, for our citizens.
Right.
And then along with that, we've released a mobile application for the city that enables citizens and businesses to request all sorts of services from the city. Before that, we had a gentleman, God bless his heart, that took all the calls from all of the citizens across the city.
Yes, right.
And would try to route, issues via email, and then they get lost in email and all those kinds of things. We put a new solution in place that puts city services right into the pockets of our citizens, our residents, and allows them to request any number of things. We started with public works services around, reporting potholes and damaged concrete on sidewalks and water leaks and things like that.
Yes.
We also started with a bulky item pickups around the city, but now we've added power concerns for Burbank Water and Power. Very recently, we added forestry services that residents can request from the application, and pretty soon we're about to add animal services, animal shelter services.
Interesting. Well, and that's one of those like City 311 kind of applications.
It is,
right?
yes.
Yeah. And
exactly
I'm sure that a lot of our watchers and listeners would be very familiar with that in bigger cities. I know I live near Boston, and I know Boston has a lot of those capabilities on its city website. But it's not something you might necessarily expect on, a medium-sized city, 100,000.
Right. Ours has been a big hit, so
yeah,
I have to tout it.
Well, in fact, I talked to one of your users, another CIO friend of mine, who was just recently CIO at Jet Propulsion Labs, and is now Randy Levin, who I think you know, Randy.
Yes.
She was telling me that she's one of your customers and has been very impressed with what you're doing on the website. So you get kudos and a thumbs up from a fellow CIO.
Yes,
one of the things you mentioned in a big change that you made coming in was now your teams in technology are taking genuine ownership of all the platforms that you're involved in. And when we think about the before and after, like back in 2018 and then today in 2023, that was not always the case. So talk about what that has been like and some of the ways you resolve the issues in making that transition.
Yeah, so let me speak about this in a couple of dimensions. Often in government organizations, government agencies, you have silos of organizations. Silos, departments, in a lot of cases, departments have their own IT or they're doing their own shadow IT. And there's not a lot of collaboration across the city. When I first got here, there were whole departments that had very, very little interaction with IT other than to receive their desktop support needs, if you will, right?
Yeah.
Our police department is an example. Burbank Water and Power is an example, where there were really limited services, and we just didn't take ownership of many of the solutions that they rely upon. So there was the mindset change that needed to happen there with my team. But there was also, we really needed to build trust, with these departments to make them really want to partner with us. Yeah. So when I came in here, the mantra that I have consistently repeated, and I still speak about today, is that we really want to serve as trusted partner, trusted business partner, number one, advisor for all things technology and process, and then service provider. But really, we want to be thought of as trusted partners. And that's not just in words. We want to see that in action and in feeling. And so we had to change our mindset from that perspective. And we really had to change our organization and our approach to make that happen. And so our reorganization around value, how we deliver value to our citizens, and taking ownership of those value streams, all of those value streams across all of the departments, building trust with those departments so that they want to partner with us, is what has really enabled us now to take really complete ownership really of all of the technology solutions across the city. There's the exception, like operational technology at Burbank Water and Power, that's very specific and very focused. But for all of their citizen-facing services and things like that, we've assumed ownership is probably the wrong word, because for any value stream, any product, we have our product owners. They're also business owners, and we partner together.
And as you know from your work probably at Viacom and Paramount, this is a story that has been rolling out for many years across all the Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 companies. I mean, it's a terrific story, but a relatively common, even an expected one, with IT organizations that are part of very big, well-funded organizations, even today with all that's going on in the market. But you've been doing this in a city government setting where you don't have 180 people in IT. I think you mentioned you have 33 people on your technology teams. So, I think that's especially interesting how you went about that and got that going, because you've brought really big company concepts about the way IT can partner with business or with the citizens in the city. And you've brought it into a smaller venue that has a very public face because you're serving all those 100,000 plus citizens in Burbank.
Yes.
So the question that I had under all of that was in doing this with such a small staff, how did you approach the learning and the development? And we mentioned agile methodologies. How did you go about making this cultural mind shift change that it takes? And of course, we all know, I think, that it doesn't happen overnight. But talk through a little bit of the process that you deployed to kind of get everybody on the right bandwagon?
Yes. Well, let me first start by stating that in order to do a transformation like we've done, adopting the scaled Agile framework in its entirety for our entire city, you have to get your business leadership on board. Yes. You have to gain their support because none of this is very effective without their involvement and their support. So I honestly started this whole thing with all of the executives of the city and our city manager. After I went and did my own training as a CIO to become a certified safe program consultant, yes.
Oh, okay.
A lot of CIOs don't do that, but if you really want to drive a transformation, you really have to understand.
You have to know how to drive.
You got to know how to drive. Exactly. You have to be able to recount the story. You've got to be able to tell the story properly. Yeah. And so after I did that training myself, I put together a big presentation for my steering committee, which is really all of the executives of the city. I chair the steering committee, but that steering committee is the governance committee. They make decisions around policy and, project prioritization, but, budget, all kinds, all of the high level decisions that we have to make so that they have a stake in what we're doing. It's not just us. It's not just IT, right? When we talk about projects, often I'm not the one that has to make the argument for the funding because I have a business partner that makes the argument, and I help them make that argument. So anyway, I did the presentation to all of our executive leadership. They didn't fully understand it. It's impossible to tell the full story, in a couple of hours of SAFE because, SAFE is a comprehensive large framework that's really been developed to apply at any size organization. We're on the smaller size organization, but I got all of their support. Whether they fully understood it or not, I had all of their support. And because of the good work that we had been doing the previous 2 years to really turn things around, we started to build a lot of trust.
Right. Well, let me ask you about that presentation, because I'm trying to imagine a group of pretty much government-focused city officials talking through an Agile methodologies framework and the SAFE, of course, stands for something which I can't even tell you off that. You can tell me off the top of your head.
Scaled Agile framework, yes.
There you go. And it reminds me of when CIOs have tried to explain like ITIL frameworks to people, the information technology library stuff. Did you get a lot of glazing over, or did you find ways to talk about certain aspects of it in a really business graspable way?
So it's the latter. I did not dig into the details of what the Scaled Agile framework is and how it works. I really talked about the benefits that come from it. I talked about the ability to bring visibility to the things that we're doing in IT so that they can understand and be a part of it. I talked a lot about driving better engagement and better collaboration with IT and the other departments. I talked about improving our alignment. To really be great partners, you have to be aligned. You have to be marching in the same direction and really thinking this, you have to have shared understanding, if you will, between the groups. I talked about learning and improvement and how this framework, without getting into the details, enables the organization to learn and get better faster over time. I talked about how it brings flexibility to what everything that we do, and I gave them examples of where rigid approaches for us in the past have not worked, and I had really, really good examples of that I could speak to for that. And then I made the point to them that when I first got here, we had no capital projects. We executed on no capital projects.
Oh, wow.
The organization was really just focused on trying to keep the lights on. We weren't delivering anything of new value to the city. That was a different focus for us back then.
Sure.
But I explained that how this framework is going to allow us to deliver real value to them much, much faster.
Okay. And what's a great example of what that has delivered so far?
So I'll say, first of all, when I first got here, 0 capital projects. We've got 22 in our portfolio backlog budgeted for next year. We've had a 6x, increase in the volume of projects that we can deliver for the city now. As a part of adopting this framework and some of the other improvements that we were making prior to actually getting to this framework.
Yeah.
We are now engaged completely with Burbank Water and Power. We're redesigning their website and building a new portal for them. We are fully engaged with the Burbank Police Department now, and we're working on a computer-aided dispatch and records management replacement for them. And we're rebuilding their website, redesigning their website, and the same with the fire department. All of these are departments that had, limited engagement with us previously. Now they're fully engaged with us. So our engagement has soared probably 600% just in the last few years with those departments, and they truly view us as business partners today.
And that was not with a 6 times increase in the staff that you had to work with.
No, that's 0 increase in staff.
Okay. Well, and I know, and this is something I'll brag on your behalf. You are the only local government agency in the state of California that has actively done this, has a full implementation of the safe, agile methodologies. And you spoke about this, I think, recently, within the last year, at the Metropolitan Information Exchange, which is a lot of other city and municipal CIOs there. Yes. What was the reaction to that? And have you become a kind of infamous resource now for safe, agile in the city government?
I think so. I actually think that it's becoming my brand.
Oh, it's your new brand.
Yes, I guess it is.
He's the safe, agile guy.
Yes. I really didn't intend for that, but at the Metropolitan Information Exchange, the mixed conference last year, was my first year at the conference. And so every new member gives a new member presentation. And my presentation was about our adoption of SAFE and how it has transformed our ability to deliver new value for the city. Yeah. And it was extremely well received. It surprised me that it was so well received because it was the talk of the conference for the rest of the week. Yeah. And I had CIOs from Boise, Idaho, and as a matter of fact, probably a couple of months after the mixed conference, the CIO of the city and county of Milwaukee joined us at our PI planning, along with his team, so that they could watch us in action.
That's great.
I spoke to the CIO of Chesterville and Nashville. They were all very interested in what we have done and how we've accomplished it. Yeah. So it is. How should I say? We get a lot of play. I get a lot of questions about it. Yeah. And there's a lot of people trying to do the same.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it also, it's you, and you repeatedly, I know, make this point that you don't do it alone in IT. You have to bring the business along with you. So when these other city CIOs come to you and say, give me some advice on what to do, what are some of your top bits of advice for them as they're undertaking this? We assume they'll figure out the technical part of it. But a lot of it, I'll bet, is the people and the culture change parts of it. So what do you recommend to them?
So, I tell them that, Agile was born out of 4 principles and 12 values. It was 4 values and 12 principles. It's the other way around.
Oh, no.
And those values and principles are all really around people.
Yes.
Things like Agile principle number 6 is the best way to exchange information within a team is face-to-face communication, right? It has nothing to do with technology, if you will.
Right.
It's really about how you organize and how you work together.
Okay.
And so I would tell them, you've got to get your leadership on board. You have to sell the wares of what it is you're trying to do to them to get them on board. Because otherwise, the value that you would get from it would be very, very limited.
Okay.
The real value that we get from it is in our partnership with the business to deliver products and services that they value and our citizens value. We do that together. So it's not just from a technology perspective, but it's also from the business perspective, from their view.
Yeah.
So that's number one. Number two is there's lots and lots of training that needs to be done. So my team, first of all, I should say, after I did the training, I had my leadership team do the training, all of my direct reports. They're all SPCs, Safe Program Consultants certified and enabled for teaching. So we could all teach this stuff today.
Yep.
And then I trained all of IT, and I pulled in 15 leaders from across all of the departments of the other cities and gave them the same training. And we customized it so that it was delivered from a context that they could understand. And so that helped me build sort of a group of folks that could begin to drive this transformation.
Well, and I know that you've had an Agile coach that works full-time now with the city. And you mentioned when we talked last time that you had a full-time position that you're looking to fill, having an Agile coach on staff. Have you filled that yet?
No. So that job description goes to our city council meeting next Tuesday.
Oh, cool. All right. So if you are an Agile coach in the city of Burbank, you should pay attention next Tuesday.
Yes, right.
This might be a
There's
really
great
good
opportunity here. We're doing great things in the city of Burbank.
Well, and I'm always acknowledging with a lot of my CIO guests on here, being able to come on Leadership Live and talk about talent and what you're doing to recruit it and to retain it. It's got to be the biggest driving force that makes this worthwhile for you as well. So
it is. Yeah. No, I think a lot of organizations in the past few years have struggled with retaining tech talent and recruiting tech talent. I have not. We have not.
Wow.
We have
and
not.
You're in California, and
I'm in California.
Your competitors.
Right. California government. Yes.
California city government. It's not even state. You know, I mean, not that state's better. It's just bigger. It's a different bureaucracy. But I want to talk a little bit more specifically about your IT restructuring and reorging, because when we talked about this originally, I expected you to tell me that you had scrambled everything into like 7 different groups or that sort of thing. But you had mentioned that the hierarchical organization didn't change all that dramatically. You still have 3 divisions. It's just their focus changed. Talk us through that.
So as an example, one of my divisions when I first got here was called the ERP division. They were solely focused on Oracle ERP. Right.
On the dread of ERP. I know.
Right.
I know. Speaking for stupid users out there everywhere, nobody wants to be in the ERP system. You know,
you know, it's a necessity, but it's not necessarily fun. It's not necessarily sexy. So, so one of the changes that I've made is, you know, rather than having, so there's the ERP division, there's the applications division, and then there was the infrastructure division.
Right.
I kept the divisions, but we changed the focus. And so each one of these divisions is responsible for value streams. You know, the streams for which we deliver value to our citizens, you know, or our departments, our business departments.
Okay.
So that ERP division then became responsible for law enforcement and library services and community services and enterprise asset management and human resources, which is a part of ERP, sourcing and procurement, which is, parts of sourcing and procurement are served by the ERP system. And of course, accounting and finance, which is served by the ERP system. So ERP is still there, but now the focus is more broad, and it's focused on the business domains, if you will, or really the streams for how we provide value to our citizens.
Well, and those streams are actually, when I hear value stream and product focus, I think that it's kind of beginning to end. It's not a lot of finger pointing between the application people saying, well, you need to talk to the networking guy, or the networking people saying, that's an infrastructure issue. That's not us. That's been a classic problem with more old-fashioned IT. Yeah. But here you've got, it's kind of cradle to grave in terms of being able to handle all the problems that way. Is that what you mean? Is that how it works?
It is exactly how it works. So we, for example, today we have product owners that are responsible for a particular value stream. And they build agile teams, small teams of really not more than 12 people that include the people from networking, and maybe, to include the people from, data engineering if they need. It includes the business people, the business subject matter experts that work together to deliver these products end to end. So there's no handoffs. There's no I sent a ticket over to the infrastructure team. No, the infrastructure team is a part of your team, and they're there in your planning sessions. They're there in your stand-ups. If they've got things that they need to deliver, they're there in the retrospectives. So we organize these teams around how we deliver value to eliminate the delays of handoffs.
That's great. That's great. I love the sound of that. I can't say I've ever worked in companies that had that kind of approach, but I've been around in IT, the tech media, for probably too long. And the tech media is often way behind on all these more advanced ideas. That dreaded ticketing system. You always wanted to find a way to get around that, to have a person you could call in IT who would come right over to your desk and help you. From the stupid users of the world. This is like what we were always looking for. We're like, could someone solve this problem for me right now? You had mentioned that whenever I talk to CIOs, the big things they're always focused on are innovation and how that's going, on business strategy and how the connection is happening with business, and on talent recruiting, because talent is almost always a big problem. And you're not having a problem recruiting talent. In fact, you told me, and I'm going to quote this back to you, that you tell your city manager that you're the Lincoln Riley of municipal recruiting.
Yes.
And of course, as a non-sports follower, I had to look up and find out that Lincoln Riley is a really big deal. And the head coach of the USC Trojans football program at University of Southern California. Why are you the Lincoln Riley of municipal recruiting? What is it you're doing?
Because I get in the veritable transfer portal of IT, and I get talent from all over. Not just.
I noticed you said steal, and then you covered that up. Well, your new Deputy CIO Manager comes from one of your past employers.
Yes, she does. Now, we didn't actually work together, but I did know her, and she was among several folks that I spoke to actively recruit them to this organization. So, she was formerly a vice president of portfolio management and agile transformation at Paramount Plus Streaming.
Okay, well.
Her name is Marina Kearns. I want to put her name out there. Thank her for joining us. She's already bringing tremendous value to what we're doing here. And she was enticed by really the modern things that we do here. And if often consultants may come to work here and help us with things. And I have to say, every consultant that comes here is just amazed and they want to stay. So,
yes. Well, that's probably how you'll end up with your new Agile coach. It'll be somebody that you already know, right?
Probably, yes.
Well, so that's by taking recruiting seriously and into your own hands. you do it yourself. You think about this. I'm sure you partner with HR on these things, but you apply your network for these kind of.
I absolutely do.
Good.
And, the partnership with HR is super, super important because one of the first things we had to do was really modernize our roles and our job descriptions.
Yeah.
So our old job descriptions of, information systems analyst and network systems analyst, we're wiping away all of those old job descriptions. And we now have job description titles like technology product manager.
Oh, neat. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And we write job descriptions to describe a real product owner, product manager type of role, defined in a modern way, using modern practices to execute on what we do.
Okay.
So I've rewritten literally, I haven't finished yet, but every job description in the department. I started with our assistant CIO, our deputy CIO, completely rewrote that job description. And then we've been rewriting all the other job descriptions or creating new job descriptions to define the way the new organization operates today. And so that partnership with human resources and our city attorney's office, those partnerships are invaluable in really accomplishing something like that in the public sector.
Yes, I know that keeps, I keep remembering that as kind of the drumbeat underneath all of this, that this is with 36 people in a city government and a city government operation. And, I got you off track. We were talking about the 3 big divisions that you didn't change the existence of 3 divisions, but you refocused everybody. We mentioned the ERP division and how it refocused. The other one you had was a cloud infrastructure. What is new with that division?
Oh, so we didn't even have cloud at the time. So it was really just, actually, I want to say it wasn't even called infrastructure. It was called something else. Yeah. Network services, maybe, I think is what it was called.
That makes sense. Network services.
Yeah. But now it's infrastructure, DevOps, and data services. And so some of the new focuses of that organization are really BI, data, and analytics. Other areas where we really didn't have involvement in the city that we now have a key role in include things like traffic transportation and city infrastructure. So it's not just IT infrastructure.
Yes.
We get involved with the city infrastructure and our traffic management systems and transportation systems. What else? What am I forgetting here? Well, those are the 2 basically key new areas. Cybersecurity is a part of that organization. Collaboration technologies are part of that organization now. Including things like our hybrid audio-visual systems in our conference rooms.
Oh, all right.
To enable remote working, to enable collaboration across geographies. You would think in a city, you might not need something like that, but with our small, mighty team, we leverage third parties a lot.
Yeah.
And so, I have consultants that work with us from Brooklyn, New York, and San Francisco. I've had consultants work with us from Texas, and so that's really, really important. We're working on smart grants. We're competing for sustaining, strengthening mobility and revolutionizing transportation grants. And the folks that we're working with are in Northern California. But we can have face-to-face conversations, either via Zoom or Teams or in our conference rooms where we can have some people that are there face-to-face and folks that are elsewhere.
So you essentially end up with a city IT organization that has a national footprint in the way it deals with technology partners and probably also with your recruiting.
Yes.
The third, I think your third division used to be applications.
Yes, used to be applications, but you'll see we have products that span all of the divisions, so it doesn't make sense for that. The division has a new name. We call it Enterprise Solutions.
Okay.
But that's just a name. But their focus is on, fire protection. Anything around fire protection, general administration, business process and process automation, public information and marketing, legal and compliance, government and public affairs, and of course, GIS and land management, land and facilities is a value stream for that organization.
Right. Well, it just, I know when we first started talking about all this, before we got into the details, you were saying that one of your pitches is that when you're bringing talent in, that the work that you're doing is unprecedented and amazing. And then when people think of government, they think of old siloed bureaucracies, and that's not who you are anymore.
It's not who we are, not by a long shot. So, modern tools and modern ways of working are really, really important for us.
Yeah. Well, and let's talk a little bit about the future on the strategic business and tech priorities for the city going through the rest of this year and into 2024. What has shifted up or down on your own priority list? I mean, I know you've had a lot to do in your day job and all that, but when you're part of a CIO's job is to look ahead and, to innovate for the future, like that group you belong to at UCLA. So what is moving up or down your priority list going forward?
Much of our focus in the coming years, of course, our lean and agile practices, and we're bringing these across the entire city. IT has really driven multiple Kaizen events across the city to find ways to improve processes across the city. Digital transportation and really omni-channel citizen experience, a real big focus on citizen experience. It's key for us. Really growing our data culture, cybersecurity, of course. And I like to tell the story that we are trying to leverage technology as a force multiplier.
Yes,
so
I like that.
Automation and AI to help to do things that it takes people to do today, to do things that are maybe manual effort today, that we can have technology serve for us in the future. So AI and machine learning, key around that. Technology used to help drive sustainability for us. I mentioned traffic and transportation. So we have a complete streets plan here, where Vision Zero is a big focus for us to really drive down. The goal of Vision Zero is to drive traffic fatalities to zero. Right?
Yes, wouldn't that be wonderful?
Yes. But there are wonderful technology solutions that can help aid in that strategy. So we're really, really focused on that to work with our traffic and parking divisions and to make that a reality. And then
I've seen some of those in operation when I've traveled abroad. I've noticed that I was just in Ireland last week, and I've noticed that there are a lot for people that are, vision disabled. There's a lot of the light switches on each corner. There are audio signals as well. And I mean, that's just even simple stuff. I think some of the countries in the Netherlands have been doing amazing things with that. How do you go about staying on top of all that kind of thing? You probably have a task force for it, but how do you figure out which ones are actually going to work for Burbank?
That's a good question. I am a believer in the concept of fail forward and try new things and see if they'll work. And so if ideas come our way that we're not really sure about, big on trying them. We like to focus on the problems first. It's really, we're trying to solve problems. We're not solving technology. We're using technology to solve business problems.
Right.
And so our focus is on the business problems and how technology can aid in solving those business problems.
Sometimes what IT organizations do just to kind of keep focused on that future forward and what is coming in an innovation sense, sometimes there's a special group that does that. How do you approach that for the city? Do you have a special value stream in one of your divisions that pays attention to that sort of thing, or do you encourage it from everyone?
I encourage it from everyone. And we build, again, these virtual teams around these value streams to do the research and to execute on the pilots or the prototypes. Design thinking is some of the focus of design thinking is really identifying problems, building empathy, with your customers or your users to understand what their real needs and desires are, and then really brainstorming about solutions, and then prototyping those. So that is a part of our DNA now. We do that. We do that across all of the teams, across all of the divisions of IT. So there's not a team focused on it. All of the teams are very focused on it.
Well, you mentioned too that you recently had a discussion where you were a speaker, I think, for the library staff, and the questions were coming up about ChatGPT. And is that just going to replace our jobs? I hate the thought of librarians worried about it's hard enough to keep public libraries funded and open, but to have librarians thinking that an AI bot is going to replace them behind the desk, it makes my heart hurt a little bit. How did you respond to that question about the way neural networks and these algorithms can think faster and better than human beings? I know this is something you pay a lot of attention to.
It is. Yes. The question specifically was, will AI replace our jobs? And my answer is AI will replace some of the things that you do in your jobs. Absolutely.
And that's a good thing.
Yes, it is a good thing. Because what AI cannot replace is the human connection that you have with the citizens. It cannot replace the relationships with the people that come to the library, seek your services, seek your help, or are looking for material. AI can never replace that. And so AI replacing some of those mundane manual things that you do day to day will just free you up so that you have more time to spend with your customers, with your citizens. To strengthen those relationships that you have with them. Okay,
good answer. I take it that you didn't get thrown out of the library on your ear when you talked about that.
I didn't.
They were like, "Thank you, Kevin. That's okay. You can come back again another time." Let's talk as we wrap up here. Tell me about what you have learned about your own leadership style, especially in these last few years, as we've been going through mostly the downs, but sometimes the occasional up with the pandemic and all the disruptions around that. Have there been unexpected benefits for you as a leader? And if so, how did you find those?
Well, I'm big on self-growth and personal development and really trying to understand myself better. So in the past couple of years, I've done multiple assessments. I did a Wiley 360 assessment. That I took, and all my direct reports, provided feedback for. All of my peers in the city provided feedback for, and many of the people that I collaborate outside of the city, and as a board member in some of these other organizations. To really, it's a 360 DISC assessment to really get a better understanding of who I am, who I think I am, and who I believe I show up versus how others see me.
Yeah. My Irish grandmother used to talk about the gift of geas. to see
Yes.
ourselves as others see us. And that could there was a surprise in that for you, wasn't there?
There was, because I've always thought of myself as a very collaborative leader, and not really a commanding, control and command type of leader. But that DISC assessment came back showing me that my direct reports still very highly saw me as a commanding leader. And I couldn't understand it. What was bad to you about being seen as a commanding leader? Because that's not who I'm trying to be. I'm trying to build a team. I'm not trying to command and control. I'm really trying to build a team and ensure that all of our minds are working together to come up with the best ideas and build the best solutions. So how did you fix that perception? So what I came to find is that although for every big decision, I would ask my team their opinions. What do you think? I'd give the scenario. I'd explain. What do you think? How would you recommend we approach this? I would always end that session by then sharing my thoughts. And now the chief speaks. Yes. Right. And I wasn't trying to be commanding. I was just trying to give everybody else the opportunity to share their thoughts without influencing them with my own. So I would always go last. But what I learned was when the chief speaks, even though I think I'm just sharing my opinion, that comes across as this is what we're going to do. Yeah. As well. And this reminds me, it's so similar to the way as we get older in life and our children become adults. My husband and I discovered that our two children really don't want our opinions. So we developed a policy where we don't volunteer them. We only offer opinion. This is harder for me than for him, but we don't offer the opinion unless they ask for it. Yes, and much to my surprise and disappointment, they almost never ask. Probably because they figure, well, we know what mom is going to say, that kind of thing. That reminds me of that. It's like you have to wait till your opinion is asked for. And that can be hard when you're a person who's got all kinds of life knowledge and information and leadership to share. Yes. Yeah. That's right. You had also mentioned that you have a particular fondness for leadership books from John C. Maxwell. Oh, he's my favorite. One of his classics, you mentioned the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. Yes. Follow them and people will follow you. Yes. That book changed my life in 2007. Really? Okay. Yes. In 2007 is when I assumed the role of Vice President of Infrastructure, IT Infrastructure at Paramount Pictures. Okay. And I think, it was my first time in a role that was that large, if you will. I was the director of the infrastructure group at DreamWorks prior to that. But we were a small team, and DreamWorks at the time was very much like a startup, if you will. Yeah. And so, we that's how the company was run, and that's how we kind of behaved. But when I got to Paramount Pictures, it was an entirely different type of environment. And my small tactical thinking and my tactical approaches to leadership were a failure. So my first 6 months at Paramount Pictures was a gigantic failure. Wow. Yes. and I can admit that and talk about that today. Yeah. And that's great, because it's hard to get successful executives in any field to talk about failure. I have managed to do it a few times in IT, but it's tough. Well, everybody's had a failure. So anybody, so in interviews, I often ask, what are your weaknesses? Can you tell me about a failure? And if somebody tells me, I've never had a failure, you're lying. Red flag already. Everybody's had a failure of some sort. One of the classic deceptive answers to that, somebody told me, was to say that my biggest failing is that I'm a perfectionist. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that can actually these days mean that you're just obnoxiously sure of your own approach to something. So in a way, that actually is a failure. But they're trying to make a failing look like something that's a real strength as an employee, which
true.
That's
true,
always
true.
cracked me up.
So after that first 6 months is when a friend of mine recommended the book. My best friend, as a matter of fact, recommended the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership to me.
Okay.
So I read that book. I also got an executive coach. And by the way, I advise all executives, if you don't have a coach, I don't care who you are, you should have one. And you should keep a coach.
I've heard that from some of the greatest CIOs I've talked to over the years.
Yes.
And they were people with huge jobs, and they always surprised me with that, where they'd say everybody can benefit from coaching.
Yes, everybody, absolutely everybody.
Yeah.
Even Tiger Woods had a coach when he was the greatest golfer of on the planet. He had a coach, right?
Yes.
So, so I got an executive coach. I read that book, and that book changed my life. It changed my view of leadership. It gave me really a brand new perspective on what leadership is versus management.
Yep.
And it's, and so my career in IT leadership has only gone up from there.
Well, and you mentioned that there were among those 21 irrefutable laws that, because it's a 25-year-old classic and it just got reissued last year. And you were very disappointed that one of your favorite laws got dropped from the collection. Tell me about that.
So it's the law of E.F. Hutton. And the law of E.F. Hutton in general says when you become a new leader of an organization, you have to identify the people that have the most influence in that organization. Because if you can change those folks, or if you can win those folks over, then they will become your greatest allies. And often the E.F. Hutton, I think that millennials and Gen Zers don't know E.F. Hutton. E.F. Hutton was a financial management firm, and they had a commercial back in the 80s, 90s, maybe. And their tagline was, when E.F. Hutton speaks, people listen.
Yeah.
And every organization has the person or people who are listened to the most by that organization. And so those are the folks that you want to identify and influence first, because if they become your allies, then you can influence the rest of the organization. If they are your detractors, you're going to have a problem.
You better figure out a way to deal with that one.
Right.
Well, I think that's great. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing so candidly things that you have worked on in the past and gotten better at, obviously better and better. And it's been a real pleasure having you here today, Kevin. Thanks so much for joining me.
Oh, well, thank you. Is the time up already?
The time is up. I always tell my CIO friends, honest to God, that hour will go by faster than you think.
I feel like we just got started, Maryfran.
I know. Well, maybe somebody will come along and tell me, we need to do this as a 4-hour podcast instead of hasn't happened yet. So thank you again. It's been wonderful having you here today.
Yes, thank you.
And if you joined us late today, don't despair. You can watch this full episode right here later today on LinkedIn, but also on CIO.com, where we keep a wonderful library of all of our CIO leadership lives since late 2017. We are now into the number 104 or 5 of these interviews that have been conducted. And you can also find them all on CIO's YouTube channel. Leadership Live is available as an audio podcast as well, wherever you find your podcasts. And I hope that you enjoyed today's conversation with Kevin Gray, CIO of the city of Burbank, California, as much as I did, and that you'll plan to tune in with me again 2 weeks from now on Wednesday, May 17th, when I will be chatting up Donna Herlihy, who is the Chief Digital and Information Officer of Subway. Thanks again for tuning in and joining us today. And do take a moment to subscribe to CIO's YouTube channel, where you'll find all of the previous episodes of CIO Leadership Live, which hopefully has lots of companies in your own industry in there. And you may want to tune in and watch some of the old shows. I keep telling people it's highly bingeable. Stay well, and we'll see you here next time in 2 weeks. Take care.